So, okay. Short-term course on healthcare startups to revolution. Today we have with us the eminent personality, Dr. Saugandha Das. So it's my privilege to introduce Dr. Saugandha Das, ma'am. Welcome, ma'am.
Hello.
Presently, she is a director and co-founder, Edha Innovations Private Limited, Mumbai, a med-tech startup working in the area of maternal and child health, currently incubated at SIME, IIT Mumbai. She has over 10 years of research and development experience and work in areas of pharmaceutical nanotechnology, point of care diagnostics, and clinical pharmacology. Ma'am is a doctorate
Madam, you are not audible, Mathure madam. Mathure madam. Madam, you have been muted. We couldn't hear you.
Am I audible now?
Yes.
Sorry for the interruption. So, ma'am is a recipient of prestigious Gandhian Young Technological Innovation Award and Direct SRI STI Grant 2017. She was also invited to be a part of a week-long in residence program 2018 for training and mentoring of innovators by Honorable President of India at Rashtrapati Bhavan, organized by National Innovation Foundation. The success continued in her entrepreneurial journey with Edha Innovations, recently receiving the Canada-India Healthcare Innovation Awards 2021 by Canada-India Foundation. They are currently working on a BIRAC and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation funded project under the Grand Challenge Exploration Award 2020, where they are developing a diagnostic device for early screening of malnutrition. With this brief introduction, I welcome you, ma'am, on this short-term training course. I welcome you with a bouquet on behalf of Bharati Vidyapith, deemed to be University, Pune College of Pharmacy. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, madam, for the kind introduction. So can I share my screen? Can you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am, we are able to. Just make it on slide mode. Yeah, perfect.
So thank you, madam, for the kind introduction, and good evening, one and all. I am Saugandha Das. As madam mentioned, I am director and co-founder at a startup called Gdc Innovations. And today I'll be discussing about understanding startups from an entrepreneur's perspective. So the major points that I'll be covering here would be sharing some basic knowledge about entrepreneurship and startups. So it will be something which is relevant to academicians per se. And I'll also be discussing some resources that are available for early entrepreneurs as well as academicians if they want to venture into the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and how academicians can support entrepreneurship, and tips on how to inculcate an innovative mindset among your students and peers. And I'll also be taking some case studies to explain the same. So I hope by the end of this 1 hour, I can at least share some of my knowledge with you all so that it would be helpful for you people in future. So before I begin, let us take a small look at this clip.
Madam, is there is any volume for the video? Because we are not able to hear it.
Pardon?
Do we have any audio also? Because we are not able to hear it.
Okay. Yeah, audio is there.
Yeah. For sharing now, again, you share it again. And at that point, you will have the option just below that.
Yeah. Okay, share sound. Okay, you can see my screen now. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, madam.
So I'll just replay. The sound is audible, right?
Hello. Hello.
So you see, here we are seeing some instances of entrepreneurs, and what is common among all these stories is that these people are visionaries and they can identify a need or a problem long before anybody else figures it out. So, and the second thing is they are so passionate about what they are doing is they are not, they are unfazed by any kind of criticism or any kind of negative comments that come their way. So with this, let me take you through a small snippet of how I began my entrepreneurship journey. I had never imagined seeing myself as an entrepreneur some years down the line. And probably the entire journey started when I joined my PhD after I quit my job. And I joined my PhD at ICT Mumbai. And there, the kind of exposure that I got, my entire career trajectory changed from there on. And what happened was that my mentor is very much into promoting innovation and creative thinking among her students. And she used to always arrange various kinds of activities in the lab groups. And she used to motivate us to think outside the box, think of new ideas around a simple problem. And she also used to motivate us to go and present at various innovation competitions. And that basically gave us the exposure. We saw people around us who were innovating at such a young age. And that is how that entire entrepreneurship fire started. And over the years during my PhD, I realized that I wanted to pursue this as a career option. And I started applying for various funding options also, so that by the end of my PhD, I have funding at least at hand so that I can begin working. So that is how it all began. And though it took a lot of, at least a couple of years to actually take this full-fledgedly. So me and one of my close friends and colleagues, I started IDHA Innovations with her. And IDHA basically is a medtech startup, and we work in creating various kinds of medical devices and diagnostic solutions, especially in the area of maternal and child health. So just to understand the problem that we are trying to solve here.
The pain of losing a patient, it's terrible. But the pain of losing early because you didn't have the basic tools you need, there are no words for that.
When a patient walks into a healthcare facility, the first step is to figure out what's making them sick. What are their symptoms? How long have they had them? But in many countries, clinicians don't have access to even the basic diagnostic tools and laboratory tests they need to accurately diagnose common health problems.
But it's the rates of the undiagnosed that have researchers concerned.
Just the thing that we try to stress is that early detection, early prevention.
Vast distances and isolated communities make testing people extremely difficult.
Every medical decision depends on a proper diagnostics.
Unfortunately, these small facilities have no equipment.
Without diagnostics, primary care providers often have no choice but to use scattershot therapies. Even simple tests like hemoglobin, malaria, pregnancy test, HIV and syphilis tests are not available in 98% of the facilities.
While in vitro diagnostic tests influence approximately 70% of healthcare decisions, only 3 to 5% of healthcare budgets go to diagnostic services. Over the years, diagnostic testing has made an enormous impact on the health of patients around the world. Investing in diagnostics is cost-effective for the healthcare system. It permits accurate and speedy treatment of patients and can dramatically reduce future complications and hospitalizations. It helps prevent overprescription of therapeutics, helping reduce the fast rise of drug-resistant superbugs. And investing in diagnostic infrastructure, labs, technicians, equipment, helps us prepare for outbreaks when they do occur.
So this is what we do at IDHA. At IDHA, we are working towards democratizing the point of care testing by bringing the lab to the patient. And we are trying to design economical diagnostic healthcare solutions to majorly improve the accessibility as well as affordability to these tests. So this is one of the devices that we are currently working on. It's called as Tatvashodh. And this has been funded by Bill and Melinda Gates and BIRAC. And this is a small portable device, and you can perform multiple tests in this. It is kind of a platform technology. So this is how the device works. It's very simple to use. You just switch it on, and once it is ready to use, it will display ready, and then you basically have a test strip where you have all the reagent chemistry coated on it. You need to add your reconstitution liquid, followed by addition of your sample. And that gives some kind of a chemical reaction happening there. And then you just insert the strip into the device. And that will basically analyze and give you a final output. So the major value that this kind of portable devices can give to a clinician would be that clinician would have that device with him or her, and therefore they can take evidence-based disease management and with the patient sitting there itself. So testing can be created anytime, anywhere. And it would also reduce the number of dropouts that are seen majorly because facilities are not available for testing. So the patient basically has to travel a long distance to a nearest lab to get the test done, etc. So those kind of things can be reduced. Also, it would reduce the cost as well as time of testing, and overall democratize testing and disease monitoring. So with this, we have over the past 1 year, we have created a small team where we are 2 founders, and with myself and Dr. Nisha Yadav. She handles the business part and I handle the technical aspects. We have a team of electronic and software developers and analytical method team, and we have people who help us with the strip development. We also have a clinical trial investigator who helps us with all our field trials. And we have an exemplary advisory. Some of them I have mentioned here. We have Dr. Rohit Shah, who is our clinical mentor, and a business mentor, Mr. Anand KV, who has previously mentored various startups and social businesses. So with this small introduction to IDHA, I'll jump into the topic of today's discussion. So before we actually begin, I would like to clarify that there's a difference between a small business and a startup. So a small business is a more permanent establishment. So for example, you take the example of a shop or a restaurant. So those are small businesses. So they take up less risky projects. They follow a traditional method. They have a proven business model, and therefore there's a higher chance that they would succeed in future. On the other hand, startups, they are more temporary in nature. They could grow to become an organization, but initially they are more temporary. They handle incredibly risky and innovative projects, and therefore they have to take a non-traditional method to market as well as design a business model around that. So with this understanding, let us take a look at the Indian startup scenario. So currently there are around 41,000 Indian startups, and they have almost created around 5 lakh jobs in this sector. Over the next few years, by 2025, it is expected that this number will more than double to around 1 lakh, and it will create more than 33 lakh jobs. So India is currently the third largest ecosystem, startup ecosystem in the world, and one of the fastest growing. So there's huge scope of startups coming forward in future. And you see that there is a huge increase in the number of unicorn startups. So unicorn startups, you must be hearing this term very recently a number of times, with so many companies getting unicorn startup status. So unicorn startups are basically startups who have a valuation of more than 1 billion USD. As of 2025, the startup industry in India is expected to cost around, be valued around 1 trillion USD. So there is huge scope in this area. Now coming to healthcare startups, with the pandemic setting in, healthcare startups have got a huge boost. And currently there are around 7,000 healthcare startups in India. And of these, 50% are health tech startups, and by 2030, it is expected to contribute to around 40 million jobs. And with the current economic scenario, it is a very, very important thing. And even the government is pushing towards promotion of startups. In terms of valuation, by 2025, the healthcare startups will contribute to around 10.6 billion USD. Now, which are the healthcare startups that are doing well? I mean, the areas. So one is telemedicine, like you see, take for example, Practo. So Practo is an online consulting for medical practitioners. So that kind of, those kind of startups will take up. Then you have self-health management enablers. So you have e-pharmacies, you have various fitness apps coming up. So basically promoting people to take their health in their own hands. Then another area that is point of care diagnostics will do very well, because now everything is becoming more patient centric, more home based. So this is going to take up the pace. And then you have affordable medical devices, which are rapidly coming up, patient awareness and education platforms. Then you have electronic health records and analytics. So now everything is going online. All the data is being stored on a cloud platform. So data will become the next big thing in this industry. And majorly all these health startups would be focusing on improving accessibility, affordability, and quality to the patient or the end user. Now, the startup, since it is a very small entity, it's not like a big organization who has everything inside the organization itself. Therefore, the startup ecosystem is supported by many other entities around it, and that constitutes the startup ecosystem. So you have support organizations, you have big companies, like big companies might help startups to take the product forward. Plus, research organizations and universities play a very important role in the startup ecosystem, because maximum, if you see, maximum startups, they begin at a university level, and from there they take up a startup perspective scenario. Now, we also have service providers who help them. So for example, you have designed some product. Now you want to scale it up or you want to make it look better. So you go to people who can do that for you without having to hire them on your payroll. So those are called as service providers. Even for services like marketing, distribution, things you are not comfortable doing because you are a research entrepreneur. So you can't do everything yourself. So for those, you can hire services. Plus funding organizations. So this is very, very important because obviously without funding, a startup will die. Now, why is entrepreneurship so important? Before we actually move into what entrepreneurship is and all, let us take a look why entrepreneurship is so important.
Why are entrepreneurs important for the economy? For starters, entrepreneurs create new business. They invent goods and services, resulting in employment, which then results in more and more development. For example, a few IT companies founded the Indian IT industry in the 1990s. Businesses and associated industries then flourished. Entrepreneurs also add to national income. Existing businesses may remain confined to their markets and hit a glass ceiling when it comes to building income. But new products or technologies create new markets and new wealth, and increased employment and higher earnings contribute to a nation's taxes and spending. Further, entrepreneurs create social change. They break tradition with unique inventions that reduce dependence on obsolete systems. Smartphones and their apps, for example, have revolutionized work and play across the globe. Finally, entrepreneurs can invest in community projects and help charities and other good causes, further developing ventures beyond their own. Bill Gates, for example, used his money to boost education and public health.
So you see that it's not just about contributing to the economy, but it is also about social change, bringing a revolution in the kind of technologies that are available. Because traditional businesses generally work, like I mentioned, traditional businesses generally work on safer projects. But startups actually start working on innovative projects, and that is how a revolution is created. Like this took the example of mobile phones, or even for that matter, internet. So that revolutionized the entire communication industry. Now, what is entrepreneurship all about? Simply put, entrepreneurship is solving a problem which has some market value. So today you identify a problem and you transform that problem into a solution. So you become an entrepreneur. So now coming to the point, how do you generate those ideas? So it could be things you wish existed but can't find it. Like I'll take an example of Mamaearth as a brand. I think everybody all of you might have heard about this company. So they said that when they had a baby, they realized that they do not have safe products for their baby available in India, and they had to get those from abroad to use for their baby. So that is how they said that we realized a need in the area, and then they created this company who focus on natural, safe ingredients and products. It could be needs of, you could identify needs of people around you. Like today you see somebody struggling with something and you think that yes, this solution can be made. So it could be needs of people. It could be improving existing products or services. Like there were always cosmetic products available for almost 50-60 years or more. But why did natural cosmetics take up so much? Because it was solving a need that was currently not available. And lastly, it could improve the access to information or products. Like for example, Uber and Ola, they solved the problem of transportation. Taxis were already available, but then they improved the accessibility to getting a cab. So that is how accessibility, and you could also talk about Swiggy or Zomato. They improved the accessibility of getting your food. So these are the areas from where you can draw your ideas from. Now moving from idea to product, if you're talking about a product-based startup, there are steps from taking your idea to a product level. So now you have an idea, but until and unless you create a prototype of it, you do not know whether that will work or not. So the first step is creating a POC, which is nothing but a proof of concept. So that indicates that your idea is feasible. So I'll take a pharma example. Say remdesivir was showing a lot of toxicity in COVID. So some researcher might think that, okay, let us design nano formulations of remdesivir. So that was their idea or their hypothesis, but they do not know whether that is possible. So they take up small batches and they find that yes, the nanoparticles could be synthesized and with good drug entrapment or particle size or whatever characteristics. So that becomes a POC concept, so proof of concept establishment. Then moving from there to a prototype stage. So prototype is nothing but a fully functional product. So fully functional meaning it could be like you do further testing on that nanoparticle and you check it for in vitro as well as in vivo efficacy. So now once that works, that means you have a prototype in place. Then you give it to maybe a clinical team for getting a clinical trial done. So there you get user feedback, you get the results of that trial. And if that again is supporting you or favoring that product, then you have an MVP, that is a minimum viable product. So till this academicians, I think, can move till the MVP stage. And then based on whether they want to set up their own company and market it entirely themselves, or they can give it to some company to move ahead. So next would be if they scale it up a little, and that would be a pilot stage. And then comes bulk manufacturing and production stage. So this is the trajectory that any person has to take, right from idea to product stage. And based on what they want in future, they can decide up to which stage they would be handling and which stage they would want to give it to somebody else to handle. So how to start a startup? So this is a very, very basic breakup of how it is. So like I mentioned, first and foremost is idea, and that is the key to any successful business or a failed startup. So if you have identified the right idea, things will go as per plan, hopefully. And from the idea, you have a research. You research about that idea. You start raising funds to build a product. And once you have the research in place, you design a solution around it. You design a prototype, get customer feedback, iterate on the prototype, and finally, after multiple iterations, you finally have the product designed. So till this stage, academicians already handle it. After that, this part is where the startup comes into picture. So here the legal work starts. So if you want to take this product to the market, you can incorporate a company, or you can give it to another company, a bigger company, to license by licensing. So if you are thinking of starting it yourself, so you have to incorporate a company. You have to patent the product if you have not already patented it. You have to take product approvals and licenses related to the product so that you have the necessary approvals to take it to the market. Next comes raising funds. Here you need to raise a lot of funds because again, you have to build a team. You need to take people on board, the kind of skills that you don't have in your team. Like you might need marketing help, you might need distribution help. So either you hire people in your team, or you build partnerships with some service providers like I had explained before. And so you will need funds at this stage to do this. And then lastly, you would market your product, that is market launch. And once the product is launched in the market, people will start using it. Customers will start giving their feedback. You will start working on product iterations and you will create versions of your product. And slowly you will start growing and scaling your business. Now, coming to the startup incorporation. So startup incorporation is nothing but setting up your company, creating a company in your name. So first and foremost, the thing that you have to do is hire a CA, and that CA will do all the job for you related to all the legalities and all the paperwork. So you don't have to do anything yourself. But there are two things very important that the founder needs to do. One is deciding on the name of the company, because the name should be available. So there are various resources that are available. Some links I have shared here. If anybody is interested, they can go and check out these links. So the name should be available, and believe me, there are so many names already taken that getting an available name is the biggest problem. Then the name should be memorable and catchy. It should be simple, easy to pronounce, avoid acronyms, etc., etc. So once you have shortlisted some names, you have to give it to your CA, and your CA will then go to the Ministry of Corporate Affairs site, and he will check if the names are available or not. And whichever name is available, the company is incorporated in that name. The second step that the founder needs to do is registering the company. And there are various kinds of companies. Like my company is a private limited company. So based on what you see your startup doing in future, how you see your company growing in future, you need to decide on the startup. So there is a one-person company, there is a limited liability partnership, private limited, public limited. It could be for-profit company, it could be not-for-profit company. So you really need to talk to some experts and then decide on what type of company you want to register. So these are the two things that you need to provide to your CA, and the rest of the things that person will handle. The next important thing is having a business plan. Once you are starting, you should have a business plan in place, which is nothing but a roadmap for your business. So that business plan has all the details related to your executive summary, business description, market analytics, financial projections, what kind of funding you will be needing in the next 5 years, what kind of team you will be needing, marketing plans, etc. But why is this important? One, it will help yourself guide your business. Since there are milestones mentioned, you can measure the progress of the growth that you are having. And if some investor or somebody who wants to put in, a third person wants to enter your company, then you can share this business plan with them. And that person will also understand that what is your plan in the next 5 years. That gives clarity to the person who doesn't share the same view or goals like you. So that person will get a better idea of your business. Next important thing is financing a startup. So we have idea, we had incorporating the startup. Then important thing was a business plan. Now we have to finance the startup, which is again very, very important part of setting up a startup. So startup requirements vary from an early stage to a later stage. So the initial stages, you need start with a small funding, which is called as bootstrapping. And most companies start like this. Bootstrapping is nothing but you put in your money, or you can borrow money from your friends and family. And that is how you finance your company initially. Another is incubator. So there are business incubators, like we are incubated at SINE, IIT Bombay. So incubators are basically organizations. They provide you with space space and facilities, or even equipment facilities and networking facilities. They mentor you, they link you up with various funding options. And sometimes they even seed fund your company with small amounts so that you can go to the next level. But in return, they take some shares of your company. And once your company starts becoming a profitable business, they will take that percentage. Next is crowdfunding. So crowdfunding is nothing but, as the name suggests, you raise funds from people. So you have your idea, you start campaigning online, you start sharing your ideas on social media platforms, and then people start looking at your idea. And if people think that your idea is very important for them, then they can make donations. And then you achieve the goal of whatever amount you have set up. But this is a good way because you don't have to share your shares of your company. But on the other hand, the problem with this is that not all companies can be funded this way, because you can imagine you are just leaving it on people. You might not be able to attain the amount. Next is angel investors and venture capital. So angel investors are nothing but they are individuals who are rich. They have a lot of money and they are looking for businesses to put in their money. So if they feel your business can grow in future, so they will put their money in, and later once you start making profit, they will get their share out of it. Venture capitals, on the other hand, are similar to angel investors, but the only difference is venture capital is a company and they are associated with various angel investors or rich people, and they manage their money. So they take their money and they invest it in companies. So again, the same thing, they take some shares in return. Now, the advantage of these angel investors and venture capitalists, you can get a lot of money at one time. You can get their expertise and their name, their credibility. But on the other hand, the drawback is that they can take a lot of percentage of your company or shares of your company and basically dilute your company. And also they might want you to change big things in your company. Like they might say that you change the brand name of your company. So you might not like changes that they want to incorporate. So those are things that you need to look into before taking money from them. And then there are simple bank loans available. Here you don't have to give them any share. You can just take the loan, and in return you have to pay interest. But on the drawback side is that too much loans and debts is not a good thing for any company. So you should try to avoid this till the time possible. And if you are taking it, you should return it as early as possible. So like I mentioned that research organizations and universities play a very important role. So next I'll be moving into academicians and entrepreneurship. So I would like to clarify here that it is not necessary that an academician has to quit a job and only then they can be part of entrepreneurship. They are a big help to any startup. And I would like to encourage, since we have faculties here, so they should network with small companies and small startups. That helps actually both ways. It becomes a symbiotic relationship. You can work on industry projects and you can help a startup also on the other hand. And in return, you can do some meaningful research and you can earn money in the process. So this is something related to how teachers can contribute.
Embedding entrepreneurial learning into education will help to prepare the next generation for the fast-changing economy.
I'm sorry.
Embedding entrepreneurial learning into education will help to prepare the next generation for the fast-changing economies. In a time of world economic crisis, national economies are faced with increased unemployment and business closures. Policymakers charged with preparing the next generation for success cannot work alone. A quick fix has been to encourage young people to start their own business by offering entrepreneur support programs. At the same time, a broader approach is needed to form an entrepreneurial culture that can flourish in hard times. The solution is to make the entrepreneurship competence part of lifelong learning for all. This begins by building a common understanding among stakeholders. So, what does being entrepreneurially competent mean? Being able to identify opportunities and take initiative, recognize and manage risk, find creative solutions to problems, communicate successfully, manage resources, and be financially literate. Teachers need to be able to facilitate entrepreneurial learning, and entrepreneurship needs to be integrated in all subjects. Schools and communities open to innovation and reform need to work together. Small, tried, and tested ideas are as important as a conducive policy framework. The EU Entrepreneurship Competence Framework can be adapted and adjusted as a basis for reforms in each country. The ETF supports this through peer learning and exchange of good practice. The entrepreneurial agenda won't go anywhere without teachers being on board and trained. Businesses and schools need to work together. What we do now will create a better world for our children.
So you see, teachers play a very important role in promoting entrepreneurship. So how can academicians be part of this entrepreneurship or entrepreneurship ecosystem? So there are different ways that it can be done. One is becoming a full-time entrepreneur. The person can quit his job, his or her job, and become a full-time entrepreneur. Now, this is a very uncommon situation you will find in academics. There are some examples, and I'll be sharing one of them. However, the better way to go about is spin-off entrepreneur. So spin-off entrepreneur is something like, say the faculty is working on a project with some student, and that research actually takes off well, and there is a good established market need they identify. So that student wants to take this idea forward, and that person can start their own company. And the faculty can or cannot be part of that company. But they will not be involved in the day-to-day functioning of the company. They might just give their technical inputs to the student who is taking the company forward. And in return, the faculty can get royalty because they'll be part of the patent. The third type would be licensing. That is, the faculty can create up to the prototype stage or an MVP stage. And they could already be solving a problem that a company has given them, or they could, once they have designed something, then they go to a company and talk to them, and they could license it to the industry, and then in return they would get royalty or a one-time payment. So this is also a very good way academicians can contribute to the entrepreneurship ecosystem. And lastly, if they do not want to do these, they could mentor prospective student entrepreneurs. Not just student entrepreneurs, they should include this kind of entrepreneurial mindset to train each of their students. And who knows, some entrepreneur might be just sitting in your class. So how to begin that journey? First and foremost, like I mentioned, promote creative thinking among your students. Start giving them activities, start giving them challenges so that they start to think beyond what is there in the curriculum. They should start thinking out of the box, think of creative solutions around a problem. Then second way that they can go about is identify problems that require solutions in your field of work. So this kind of framework has been included by various universities abroad. Yes, they do it regularly. In India also, most of the IITs have started this, and various other universities are slowly adapting this technique, where they are, before a master's or PhD student starts their actual research work, they are sent for 2 months or 3 months, whatever duration, to identify a problem, talk to people around, see whatever area that they identify. Like if I plan to start working on diabetes, the teacher might send me to find out, talk to patients who are suffering from diabetes, clinicians, diabetologists. So I need to understand the entire ecosystem and identify the problem that people face, and then design a solution around that. So this is already being taken up by many universities. And the third could be that you already have a solution that you have designed, but before you actually take it forward, you go and validate it with customers, people who will actually use that product, and validate that whether the solution that you have designed around the problem is actually a problem for those customers or not. So about this, I'll be talking about ahead also, because this is a very, very crucial part of identifying a problem well. Another is designing innovative projects or solutions around those problems. So the benefit of designing innovative projects is with a known customer, like the problem, a problem has been identified. The benefit of that is that funding becomes much more easy. When you write for funding a project, then if you have a solid proof of the problem that you are trying to address, then getting funding becomes much easier than you would do for without having any kind of just online research, just based on online research. So the next important thing is making students competent to write proper proposals and presenting them in an effective manner. And for this, there are various resources, free resources that are available. There are the various incubators that are there. There are various programs that are going on. They train students to in writing better proposals and how to effectively pitch your ideas, how to communicate your solutions. So those resources can be taken advantage of. And lastly, teaching students good record keeping practices, because this I feel is very important if you want to license your product to some company, or you want to take the product forward yourself. So these records are very important, because that indicates the feasibility, that indicates all the work that has been done up to the prototype or the MVP stage. So without that, like if you go to a company saying that I don't have records, then it becomes difficult to take the work forward. Now, the major reasons why a startup fails is majorly is no market need. So you see 42% cases, there was no market need, and that is why a company failed. Running out of cash, not right team. So these are reasons why companies fail. So in order to manage that, there are various resources available for startups. And one such program is the GDC Incubate Program, where you can transform your research into creating actually a scalable business. And I have personally attended this program, and I would recommend it to all the faculty present here because it is specially designed for a faculty and people who want to enter entrepreneurship. It is an 8-week program. It is a very, very intensive program, but the kind of learning that you will get from this program, it is a complete transformation of the way you think about ideas and the way you design solutions around it. So it is specifically for faculty, researchers, and aspiring entrepreneurs in STEM universities to convert their research idea into an innovation. So this is the link. I provided the link. If anybody is interested to start to attend that, they have cohorts running every 2 months. So you can check that out. Another good resource is the Stanford Seed Spark program. It is organized by the Stanford Business School. And this is a more comprehensive one. It's a 4-month program. And it helps you understand various parts of a startup issues that are faced. And finally, they have a finale where there's a competition and you can compete for a cash prize. So this program is more for people who actually want to venture into full-time entrepreneurship. But even for people who are interested, they could take a look. Also, various universities have their translational programs. Now I see a lot of universities coming forward with their own e-cells. So there also you can get help if you have a research work that you feel that you want to commercialize or you want to take it to or license it. So you can get help from those parts also. Then you have incubators and accelerators who help you convert your idea and grow it. So this is also something you can explore. But this is more for people, again, who want to take the company forward themselves or even spin-offs. So this is a complete list of all the startup incubators in India. And these are all the technology business incubators in India. So I have given the links of all. If anybody wants to refer, they can go through it. Then the Startup India website has a lot of good information about the startup ecosystem. What are the funding options available? What are the awards or schemes available? What are the schemes and policies that government has for startups to flourish? And if you register on their site, you get a lot of information on your mail. And you can check out this website also. And this website also gives you a lot of information about, even if you are patenting, they reimburse your patenting bills and all. So those things, you can check it if anybody wants to go ahead. Then you have early stage funding options. So funding being one of the major requirements for a startup. So again, Startup India website have various funding schemes. You have BIRAC, which is one of the biggest funding agency for biotech-based startups or even healthcare-based startups. So they give you details about incubation facilities. They have different funding options, right from idea to early stage, idea to late stage, translational research, equity funding, social innovation, and even the type of you want. So you have good segregation here. And this is not just for startups, even faculty can take advantage of this funding. At least there are a lot of funding options for faculty, and they fund individuals also. So under that program, even faculty can apply to these programs. And you get good amounts like 50 lakh or more amounts are there. And these are some more sites where you can find. Now, one important thing for funding is knowing how to write a proposal well, because As researchers, you might be very familiar with these normal proposals, normal research proposals, where you have to just talk about your proposal, problem, solution, feasibility, intellectual property, budget plan, and milestones. But when you are applying to these entrepreneurship competitions or proposals, then there are some other things that they expect in terms of knowing who your customer and market is, at least a basic idea of that. Knowing the novelty of your business idea, what is the competitive landscape, what are the product. So what is your commercialization plan to take the product forward? So if you are applying as a researcher, you can say that commercialization and go-to-market strategy would be to license it out to a company. Then there is fundraising. You have what are your financial projections in the next 5 years? Who are there on your team? So these kind of things you should have a basic idea of before you start applying to these funding options. Now, related to pharmacy field, some areas where work is required would be in terms of formulation supplements or probiotics. I felt that if you could provide a new application of an already existing excipient, then that company can fund you. The raw material company can fund you, or you can work on supplements, basically formulations which are easy to take forward. Then you can work on medical products. So there are people who have worked on medicated polymer stents. Then this product, Axiostat, which is nothing but a chitosan block, which is used as and you have cosmeceutical products which you can work on and easily take it to a company to license. Then extraction processes, like if you give some use of some existing waste product, say like, for example, if you approach a juice company, you identify what all waste products are generated, like if they are creating mango juice, for example, then the mango kernel and the skin is a waste product for them. So if you can find a good use of that, then that company can fund you for your research. Then there's synthesis, where you can design new catalysts, you can design new dyes, and then license it. And then there are diagnostic kits. So these are areas that researchers can focus on. Now, lastly, I would like to take 3 academic case studies in pharmaceutical sciences. First is a company called as C6 Energy, and it is the world's first ocean operating system. It is based out of Bangalore. And this is the story, a link to the story. You should go and read this because this is a very, very motivating story. I will not be discussing it here because of lack of time, but this is an example of a researcher who quit his job. He retired, and then he put in his retirement savings on 3 bachelor students. He took that risk. He was an adjunct professor at IIT Madras. And he basically took risk on these 3 bachelor students and on their idea. So basically, these students had identified a macroalgae and seaweed, basically. And that seaweed they used to create various kinds of products over time. And they have been functioning for 10 years now, and they are one of the biggest success stories of the biotech industry.
Humanity now consumes much more than the planet can replenish. In the last 45 years, the demand for Earth's natural resources has doubled. Just feeding the growing population is one of the challenges we will face in the coming decades. The world is experiencing the twilight of oil. Water continues to be the source of wars. The ravages to this planet are seen everywhere. And no, we don't have another planet to go to. Humanity has also showed us time and again that powerful intentions paves way for a new world.
So, under this wide umbrella of making the world a better place, my co-founders and I started C6 Energy by coming up with this wild idea of making a farm on the seas for unlimited supplies of photosynthetic biomass, with a view to creating a carbon-neutral replacement for fossil fuels. We've been extremely lucky that the biostimulant business, especially our flagship product, Agrogain, is a direct byproduct of our research to convert the seaweed into biofuels. What is even more amazing is that the use of biostimulants not only improves crop yields, which is a big improvement towards food security, it also reduces fertilizer needs, which is a big improvement for the environment. Producing seaweed using the technologies that C6 Energy is developing can not only be a source of crude oil to power the world, it can also be a replacement for everything that is today derived from crude oil, like plastics and other organic chemicals. All of these can be potentially manufactured without adding the extra carbon dioxide to the atmosphere that we've been adding ever since coal and oil became the fuels to power the Industrial Revolution. Our team is dedicated to making these remarkable scientific probabilities not only technically feasible, but also commercially viable and globally scalable. It has to be of benefit to everyone and reach everywhere. After all, we live in a connected world.
So basically what they did was they had started with the seaweed and they had thought that they will grow the seaweed on oceans and then they will create fuel from that, which will not require, it will not be a fossil fuel. But over time they realized that creating so much fuel that it could energize the entire, it could be used for the entire population was something which was very, very far-fetched. So they basically found out other byproducts from that seaweed and they decided to find new usage or applications. And then they found that it could be made into bioplastic, that seaweed could be converted into bioplastic. They could use it as a food additive. They could even, they even created a biostimulant out of that extraction process and they found, and now Mahindra has taken up that product and it's doing very well. It is being used as a additive for to reduce the consumption of fertilizers. So you see, one thing led to another and this one man believed in these three young people and now this company is doing so well. The second example that I would take is of a spin-off type of entrepreneur, which is Dr. Rohit Shivastava. He is the professor of biomedical engineering at IIT Bombay. So he has created various kinds of point-of-care diagnostics and some he has licensed it out, some he has created companies with. Also in terms of formulations, he has created antibiotic-loaded polymer sponges. He has created bone screws for polymeric bone screws for bone grafting, microneedle formulations, and he has also worked majorly in the area of cancer. And these are the spin-off companies from his lab, a few of them. And he continues to be in close touch with startups and many other startups are coming out of his lab. So he is the example of a second kind of academic entrepreneur. The third kind is Professor Padma Devarajan. She is my mentor and she was my guide during my PhD. She was the former head of department of ICT Mumbai and currently she holds various positions in the ICT Innovation Council also. So one technology that did very well from her lab is called as InstaNano, which is a simple, affordable technology for creating drug nanoparticles. And I had been fortunate to be part of this during my PhD. And basically, we all understand as pharmacists that preparing conventional nanoparticles is a very complex step. It has multiple steps involved and it has scale-up challenges. And this entire process has been reduced to just 3 steps. That is, you just dissolve the drug and excipients in a solvent, you sterile filter it, and the sterile filtrate that you get, we call it a pre-concentrate, and you just fill it into vials and it is ready to use. So the method of preparation is very simple and scalable. So thereby bringing down the cost of manufacturing of nanoparticles. And obviously you will think that this is a solution. How does it work? The beauty of this technology is that you just need to provide a solution, and just before use, the nanoparticles can be prepared on site. So this is how the technology works. So these two vials would be provided. One, this will contain the drug pre-concentrate. You just take it into the syringe. The nurse or the doctor can be doing this just before they want to inject the patient. And they just add it, you just need to add it to the dextrose vial provided. And you just mix it a little, and your nanoparticles are ready to be injected, and they are of very uniform size and very good drug entrapment. Now, this kind of technology creates advantages, twofold advantage. One is that you are bringing the method of nanoparticle preparation, you're basically simplifying the method of nanoparticle preparation. And second is that you are improving the stability of these preparations, because you can prepare the nanoparticles on site. Thereby the stability concerns can be reduced, because yes, nanoparticles have shown stability issues in the past. And also you are skipping the freeze drying process, which again adds to the cost. So overall, this kind of technology creates advantages in terms of biological advantage, because you are providing a targeted delivery system in terms of nanoparticles. It is highly efficacious and a safe nanosystem. You have technological advantages because it is simple, scalable, and commercially exploitable. And you have cost advantages because of the simplicity of manufacturing process. And one of this technology has been used for a product which is a novel targeted buparvacone solid lipid nanoparticles for treatment of theileriosis, and it is being currently marketed by Saifi Vetmed. So Madam licensed this technology to this company, and they are selling it under the name Boo and Trap for treatment of theileriosis in cattle or domestic animals. Another interesting product that she has licensed to the same company is called as NovaDip, which is a bioadhesive barrier type film forming product. So it is a very simple, it is a blank polymer solution. And the problem that happens is when after milking of cows, the teat of the cows that it is wet, and it has some milk sticking to it also sometimes, or water. And when they sit on the ground, the teats get infected because it touches the dirty floor. So after the milking process, you can just dip the teats in, you wash the teats and then dip it into this polymer solution. And the polymer solution basically forms a fast forming film around the teat, which protects the teat from getting infected. So this product is again has been licensed to this company. So these are the three types of entrepreneurs that I wanted to show, just to tell you that entrepreneurship is not just limited to quitting your job and like taking risks, but it is more about how you create an entrepreneurial mindset among yourself, your peers, and your students. And that basically triggers creative thinking. And once that process of thinking happens, then the way you perceive a problem and the way you tackle or design a solution around it, that changes. So I would, at the end, like to leave you all with this thought that I want to tell you that please incorporate this mindset among your students so that entrepreneurship could get a boost. And that is something which is required not only for the economy, but for society in general. So I'm extremely grateful to be part of this program and to have been given this opportunity to be sharing my thoughts and learnings. And especially a big thanks goes to AICTE Madam and her entire team at PCB for giving me this opportunity. And if any of you feel that I could be of any help, you please feel free to connect with me. So thank you, and I would be happy to answer any questions if you have.
We have one question from Dr. Jaya Agnihotri in the chat box. Please elaborate on patient education and awareness startups.
Patient awareness and education.
Yes.
So what exactly, I mean, people who want to start a startup in this area?
Yes, I guess. Jaya madam, you can unmute yourself and yeah. Okay, so the area will be patient education and awareness for the startups.
So, madam, this particular area, I feel that it is very, very important because when we were talking to various clinicians during one of our customer discoveries, we generally talk in a more generic term. And when we were talking to various doctors, especially gynecologists and obstetricians, they had mentioned about say, for example, a pregnant woman in between this COVID pandemic. They were afraid to come to the hospital to get their prenatal checkups done. So it was becoming very difficult for the doctors to actually explain things to their patients. So she mentioned that what their clinic took up was to create videos for every trimester, like every trimester, what is expected, what happens, and it should not be, I mean, yes, YouTube is there to facilitate that, but YouTube has all kinds of contents. And if today I want to search something on YouTube, I don't know what is authentic and what is not. So that doctor mentioned that if we have some educational video forms or formats created where I could easily just share the links to those videos, and then the patient can go through those videos trimester after trimester, so that it becomes easy for the patient to understand what to expect in their pregnancy at each stage and what kind of medication to take. So those are things that come under patient education and awareness. Another example I can take is around, there's a company which works in the area of creating awareness around menstruation, because that is again a taboo area in India. And many people are, even parents are not comfortable talking to their children about it. So that company basically focuses on creating audio, video, visuals, and they even have comic books with small stories in them. And parents can buy those comic books, and they can explain complicated things to their children in the way of stories without having it becoming very difficult to explain. So basically creating awareness means these kind of things. So handling social issues by using audio visuals or even printed things.
Thank you, madam.
Other questions?
Hello.
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are.
Yes.
Yeah, I would like to ask. Hello.
Yes.
Yes. So I'd like to just ask one question. When you build this team, because when you have an idea, initially you want to be very means there has to be some document with which you protect that, and then afterwards you will open it with all. So what is the regular legalities that are actually involved initially while I'll be exposing my idea?
So first and foremost, as an academician or anybody who is working on a new idea, first step should be patenting it. And patenting doesn't take too much money. If you are applying for an Indian patent, you just need to pay around 1,500 rupees, 1,600 rupees. So I think spending that much to protect your idea, if you actually believe that idea has potential, So spending that amount for applying for a provisional patent is not a bad idea. And if you apply for a provisional patent, you get at least 1.5 years to file the full specifications. So that should be the first step if you're thinking of taking that idea forward. And once you have that protected, you at least get a breathing space of 1.5 years where you can work on your solution. And even you can freely communicate with anybody because you have that legal document with you in place. And you can freely talk about that. So I think patenting is the first and foremost thing when you're moving forward with your product.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Yeah.
Hello. Yes, madam, I also have one question. Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, I am Dr. Kavita Gajpie from Pune College of Pharmacy. Madam, I have one question. What kind of problems generally entrepreneurs face for winning the trust of the consumers?
That is something like, it is not about trust. If you have a solution which already has an identified customer and you are solving somebody's need, then I think trust is not something that you will need to build. Like I said, for startups, since their ideas are very novel, so there are not too many competitor products. Like if I say today I want to, as say my company wants to sell soap, then I'll have to build trust of a consumer because there are so many other soap companies who are selling soap and every company has some USP. But when it comes to startups, since they work on very innovative solutions, and those solutions are not generally available, or if available, there are very few competitors. And in that also, the startup has some major advantage over the existing companies. So based on that, you can convince your initial customers that this is the advantage that I am giving you against some other product that you are currently using. So if I take an example, like if you talk about a healthcare startup, say I have to convince a doctor to use my device. So I will not make the product and then go to that doctor and say that this is the product and you have to use it. Like I mentioned, the customer discovery program thing starts much ahead. When you're designing the prototype, that time only you go to the prospective customer. You identify people who could be your customer in future. Go to them, talk to them, identify what problem that person faces, and then you incorporate those solutions to those problems that they have mentioned in your product. And then you go back to them with the modified product and then show them that this is how I have modified it according to your convenience. So that is one way to go about, because you are incorporating the needs of the customer in your product. So you don't have to tomorrow go and convince them to use your product. And they basically are a representative group for the larger mass of doctors. And second thing is, in case of a health product, if you have to convince or build trust around your product, I think licensing requirements and the approvals that are needed, like say a medical device would require a CI approval, a CDSCO approval. So those approvals are proof enough to show the doctor that yes, these are trustworthy government approved products. So building trust can also be from the point of view of licenses and approvals that you have. But in terms of usage, like I said, if you are incorporating solutions to the problems that people or customers are facing, then you don't need to do the convincing part. I hope I have answered your question.
Yes, madam. Thank you. Thank you so much for your ideas. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
So I think ma'am has answered the questions. Any other question?
I have one question, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Ma'am, I have one question. Suppose if someone have the product already with him, and if suppose he wants to commercialize that product, so are there any specific or particular strategies to follow to increase the market value or commercialization of that particular product?
So you're saying as the person does not have experience in marketing.
Yes, yes. Means how to deal with that marketing or commercialization of that product.
So first, it depends on what kind of product. Like medtech products have a different path. Other things have different paths. So depends on the product. Like I mentioned, most importantly is whatever product you're trying to sell, you need to first have the required licenses in place. Once you have that licenses and whatever approval that kind of product will require to take it to the market, that is something that you have to do at your end. And those things, once that is figured out, then the next step, taking it forward in terms of marketing and distribution, sales, etc. There you have support systems like the one I had shown. You can build partnerships with various service providers. So there are service providers who do this kind of job only. So they basically, if you collaborate with them, they will help you, they will understand your product, and then in exchange for some fee, you will have to pay them for their services, and you can just collaborate with them, and you can give that part of the work to them if you are not very confident in the marketing and sales part. But I would suggest, if you are a startup, then a startup should have a business person on their team, so that you are not just dependent on somebody else, that you completely give something else to somebody else and you don't have any control over that. So at least one person should be there who understands the process, and then you can license the other part out, or basically give some part of the work to go ahead. So you have distribution collaborators, you have sales teams, you can hire sales teams and then tell them to market your product. You have marketing teams who can do it for you. So that is the way a researcher who wants to become an entrepreneur can go about. And the best way for academicians to take products forward is to leave it at the licensing stage. I mean, you make the product, do whatever you do best, and then give it to some bigger company to take it forward. I think that is the safest way to go for academicians.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Saugandha ma'am, for that really enlightening session about understanding the startups from the main component, that is the entrepreneur perspective, because the commercialization and the marketing value is really important. That is going to have a much weightage, I would say, from the research what we have done. So that was very simple session to understand, and the examples what you had quoted, we will, in fact, all of us will really look into those studies into detail, so that we get different ideas that how to go about the research what we carry out at academic level, or maybe at PG research level or doctorate level.
Yeah, bottom line is you need to identify the idea well, so that you can take it forward.
Yes. The idea is the main thing.
Yes, idea is the main thing.
Right, absolutely right, ma'am. So thank you, ma'am, for sparing time for us and giving an excellent session for all the faculty members. Even few students have also joined the sessions. So really the session was very excellent for understanding, and of course the different components related to grants what were explained, that will be also useful for many of us. So thank you, Saugandha ma'am, and as a token of appreciation from our side, we would like to present a certificate to you. And
thank you,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Mailing the same to you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, and we look forward for future interactions and collaborations with you, ma'am.
Sure, sure. I'll be very happy to collaborate.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Saugandha ma'am.
Thank you. I can leave the meeting, right?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.